Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be featuring the F10 M5, which is right behind us. We've got my M4 as well. I've been out in this car. It belongs to a good friend of mine, Amar, who owns this car, and we're going to be going out in this. We're not really going to be comparing it to the M4, or maybe we will. We'll just see how it goes. We'll just go with the flow, I guess. But what we'll do is we'll give you a quick walk around of the car. It'll be rude not to give it some cold start revs, because this car it sounds like a beast compared to the M4. Really makes the M4 sound really sedated. So we'll give it some revs, probably get kicked out of this car park, and then we're going to hit those country lanes and take it from there. So here we go. This is the M5, the F10, finished off in the space grey. Like I say, it's got some really nice cool mods done to it. First of all, from the rear end, you can see that it's got a lot of carbon splats going on the back end of the bumper there. I believe it's got the stock tailpipes, but it's decatted all the way through. Moving around the top end here, you've got another carbon spoiler, very similar to what I've got on the M4, but this just kicks off quite nicely around the back end. Obviously M5, and it's got his private number plate. So when we look at the car from this profile, we can see that the tyres are kicking out. That's because it's running spacers, 12 on the front and 15 on the rear. A very similar setup to what I've got on the M4, but these alloys, there are the 20-inch alloy wheels, so they're a bit bigger in terms of diameter compared to the M4. And obviously it's wearing the Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tyres. This car does get driven. It goes on so many road trips as well as the Nürburgring. So when I said that the car's got some tasteful mods, it's being tuned by Wrench Studios. My mate, he's a member of MPC. Check out MPC on Instagram. Quite a nice bunch of guys there. One of the features that I quite like, starting off from the back end, the car's got soft closed doors, which is a very nice feature. I believe that's an option extra. If we move into the car from the driver's side, it's got an Alcantara steering wheel with carbon inlays. The rest of the car looks pretty much standard. It's got the 7-speed DCT gearbox, and it's got a sunroof, which I believe is a standard feature on the M5s. Something that is unique to the M5s are these door mirrors. Now, even though that they're not like my M4s where they have the little kick thing, I'll throw in like an inlay shot of them right now. These are designed specifically for the F10 M5, so they have a little bit more of a curvature in design. And obviously, being an M5, you've got the side gills as well, which again, on this color combination with the space gray and the black inlays, it really does look quite striking. So in terms of a brake setup, the discs are stock. The pads, it's running Brembo Plus pads, which are an upgrade over the standard Brembos that the M5s and the M cars normally come with. But also the calipers, compare that to say my M4, that caliper is a 6-pot compared to a 4-pot on the front of the M4. Another feature, the car's got a 360 surround camera setup, which will obviously help when you're trying to maneuver this big thing. Compared to the M4, it is a massive car to drive around. What I like around the front end of the car is that it comes with these adaptive LED headlights. I believe the standard feature on these would be the bi-xenons, but this comes with like the adaptive LED headlights, and it's also got the black grille, which is a must on pretty much any BMW, and obviously it's got the M5 badge in there as well. Moving towards the bottom end of the car, you've got a front carbon splitter, which I must say it's quite a rare feature, because on most M5s I don't really see a carbon splitter. On this one it really does set you off, because you've got the, again like I say, you've got the space grey paintwork, and then you've got all the black accents, which really make this car look as good as it can. So this is the beating heart of the F10 M5. So this comes with a 4.4 litre V8 twin turbo engine. You can see the turbos right there. Stock, this car comes with about 560 horsepower, although we know that those BMW figures are underrated, because these will be dynoed at like about 600. Torque figures are about 680. Wrench have obviously done all their tuning to this car. It's not been on a dyno, but the indicative figures are something in the region of about 700 plus horsepower with about 800 plus newton meters of torque. So you got 800 newton meters of torque running through the rear wheels, but what I'm told is that it's been mapped through boost by gear, which basically means that the torque curve is really smooth, and a lot of that torque comes in the higher gears when you are like blasting through, like say, the autobahns, and that's when you will really realize the true potential of the 800 newton meters of torque. So all that's now left to do is to get the M5 on those country lanes. I know this car is more of an autobahn cruiser, but those country lanes I know like the back of my hand, and it's where I spend most of my time driving my M4. It's also the second car that that's been on the channel with over 700 brake horsepower. The other car that had that much power was the S8 Plus, which was on the channel about a year ago. I'll drop a link to that video somewhere on the screen right now, so you can go and have a look at that. But it'd be really interesting to see how this car handles those bends and those corners on those country lanes. Actually, before we do end up going to those country lanes, what we're going to do is give the car a start up and see how this thing sounds. So yeah, let's give it a start up. Bloody hell, that car is loud. I mean, we've had some loud cars on the channel, but this, the ante is up there. We're gonna get kicked out of this place very soon anyway. So yeah, what we're gonna do is get the car on those country lanes. So we've got a DTM style rear diffuser with the rain light right in the center. Really makes the back end of this car not only striking but very individual. I've not seen any other M5 locally to me, or for that matter on Instagram or whatever, that looks like this. The F10 M5 behind the wheel, this car feels just like home for me, because I used to have a standard F10 which was a bug old 520 diesel a few years ago, which was the LCI model, very similar to this. And the dash design is exactly the same, but you have got a few nice telltale signs that this is the M car. First of all, the steering wheel, this one's got the Alcantara steering wheel, it's got the M paddles as well, and you've got the carbon fiber trimming. The dials are LED backlit and they've got a real nice crisp layout. So my first impressions from behind the wheel, as soon as you get in the car, you obviously realize how comfortable these seats are over the stock seats that I've got in my M4. Now these are again the stock M5 seats, but there's just a little bit more cushioning. In the M4 you do feel kind of cooped up inside. This has got a much bigger, wider seat, and even the bolstering around the sides, it's firm but it's very supportive and it's very comfortable. That's my first impressions of these seats. And obviously this being the M5, it's that level above like your M3s and your M4s. It's a bigger car and it's a lot, you know, you can feel like the executiveness that flows into the cabin. The sunroof adds a real nice feature because you get quite a lot of like an airy feel within the cabin as well, which is quite nice, because otherwise it's going to be quite dark and dingy in this, like the way my M4 feels. But once you're behind the wheel and once you've overcome how huge this car feels from inside, very quickly it doesn't feel like a big car. Now what I mean by that is the steering is quite light, so when you are driving it around it doesn't feel like it's quite a big lumpy car. We're gonna go around the country lanes. I'm gonna throw it around some corners and see what this is really about and see how it handles, because one of my main concerns is a car of this size, is it going to be as fun to drive as the M4 around the country lanes? Like I said before, it's obviously more of an autobahn cruiser, but I do a lot more driving around these country lanes and my commute and whatnot. So for me to probably consider this as my next car from the M4 at some point, it needs to tick those boxes. So I've got the car set up, Sports Plus, throttle, sport suspension, comfort steering, because I feel that's, for me, that's like the best setting in my M4 as well. And I'm going to flick it into manual mode. Man, this thing is quick. I know the car's being tuned by a wrench, so you've got a lot more horsepower and torque going through it, but it didn't like lose traction there. I mean, I gunned it right then and it didn't like spin up the wheels or anything like that. Obviously it's got the Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's, which play a huge part you know, in themselves as well. But as the owner was saying, it's the torque is mapped by gear. So in the lower gears, I believe, and from what I can tell, the torque curve is unchanged, and that torque, it's progressive up the higher the gears and the higher the rev range, I guess. I got my M4 right behind me. I never really see what my M4 looks like, but it's right behind me and it looks quite stunning, if I say so myself. I've got the gear ferocity in like the max attack mode. And like I say, this car, it doesn't feel like a huge car. I mean, the power is instant, man. I mean, you can tell like that V8 is relentless. And it feels really planted as well. It's got the blips as well when you just downshift in there. It's really responsive on the throttle, so I'm just giving it a little prod and you can just feel that it's so urgent to go. It's a very quick car, it's very responsive. And that's the thing, that's the beauty of this, is that it is a very responsive car. Just another thing to note, the way this car is set up in terms of its suspension, it's running on the stock suspension, and obviously it's got the spacers on there, which are the 12 and 15 on the front and the rear respectively, but it doesn't crash over any undulations in the road or potholes or anything like that. So it's got a very supple drive, which again, supported by these seats, you do feel like it's a very comfortable drive, I must say. And just visibility around the car, you know, there's loads of light as well, so maybe it's just an age thing, I guess. You know, like the M4 for me, it's a great car, but it takes a lot of getting used to, like say, you know, the blind spots and what have you, because being a coupe as well. Whereas this, you know, you've got a lot of glass around you. It's a very easy car to drive. Honestly, this thing pulls really strong. You know, like that torque figure I was on about, the 800 Newton meters of torque. It's not like it's all of a sudden like right there, you know, from like say, you know, 2000 revs. It builds like pretty much like an NA car. It feels like the car wants you to, like say, rev it out for you to benefit like that torque curve. I mean, it's twin turbo, but it's got like an NA feel to it. I know that sounds a bit odd, but you get the torque down below as well just to get the car moving, obviously through those twin turbos, but then it makes you chase the revs to get the best out of that 800 Newton meters of torque. But you do get that kind of like low down torque from the V8 as well, which is quite nice. What a machine this is. I think I mentioned on one of my previous videos where I'm not really a huge fan of like remaps, but I've driven cars where the remaps haven't been mapped properly to the car, so like the torque curve is all over the place, you know, it's always quite spiky. But in this, it is pretty much spot on. I can't even tell that the car's been mapped because it's that good, like as in the way the torque curve is like progressive, and that's what you want. You want it to be mapped, you want the increase in power, but you want it to follow like the stock curve rather than all of that torque coming in low down and not usable. One of the questions I was getting asked when I did like an Insta post about this car was, how does the car hook up? Well, let me tell you, this car hooks up really well. Like I've floored it from like the get-go, and it didn't really spin up the tyres. Okay, the roads are bone dry at the moment, which obviously helps, and in the wet it might be a different story. But I've seen cars, I mean my M4 for example, that will spin its tyres Just had to do that downshift there. That will spin its tyres on like a bone dry day as well. For money, these cars are phenomenal value right now. You can probably pick up a F10 M5 for about 20k, which will be an earlier pre-LCI model. An LCI model, you can probably get one for around 25 to 30k, you know, and you can get a half decent one for about 35k, I reckon, which will be like a real nice, well sought after one. So if you want some V8 power in the form of an M car, phenomenal value for money right now. Hooks up really well, and even on these country lanes, like, the suspension is really supple. You know, you might see me bouncing around quite a bit, but honestly it's quite supple compared to, like, say, my M4. Absolutely love it. Who knows, could be on the cards at some point. Maybe I'm just getting a little bit old and I'm kind of thinking, right, I'd rather trade in the sportiness of the M4 for a more comfier M5 Cruiser. Who knows? You know, even though I say that this is an Autobahn Cruiser, you can bring it down to your favorite country lane and take you around some twisties, and you can still have quite a lot of fun in this car. It's what M cars are all about. You gotta drive them for the way they've been built, and then obviously you can then just cruise around in them, doing your normal kind of pottering around town, your commute, your shopping and the rest of it. It really does have a Jekyll and Hyde personality, this car. It's one that slips under the radar when you're just going about your business, and then you flick it into your favorite M mode, and it just turns into something special. So there you go, guys. I hope you found this video enjoyable to watch and useful and informative if you're thinking of doing very similar mods to your car. If you have found it useful, then definitely give it a like, consider subscribing to the channel, and, you know, leave a comment in the comment section below. Check out me on my Instagram, which I'll drop down here somewhere, as well as the owner of this car, to see more content on this car. Also, guys, check out MPC as well on Instagram. So hopefully, guys, I'll see you on the next one. Give you a downshift and the throttle.